Christmas films are an interesting bunch. For every Die Hard or Home Alone, you got like 100 more that range from being "it's alright" to
"this is the worst."
And wouldn't you know it, WWE Studios managed to shit out 4 of these in its lifetime. In the spirit of the holidays, I got my girlfriend, who was really thrilled to do this with me by the way, and we tortured ourselves by watching all of these films for your entertainment. So sit back, relax, and
God help us all.
first up, we have Christmas Bounty. Released in 2013, it stars Francia Raisa and Mike the Miz Mizanin, whose name in the movie is also Mike. I know, how creative, right? The film opens with a cheap-ass looking title card, which really sets up the tone for the entire thing. Inside an elementary school in Manhattan is where we first meet our main protagonist, a school teacher named Tori Bell, who meets up with her rich boyfriend James after the school play. He reminds her to use this tracking app he discovered so that they'll always know where each other is, which is definitely giving weird stalker vibes. Remember this scene for later. While saying her goodbyes to everyone, a distressed parent confronts her, claiming that her son is missing. Tori finds the kid outside entering a car with an unknown man, so she does what every normal teacher would do if their student is being kidnapped: jump on top of a moving vehicle with your heels on. This is where we first get a hint that Tori might not be your regular everyday school teacher. It turns out that the sketchy guy was actually the kid's dad, but his visitation rights got suspended, so Tori nicely asks him to report himself to the cops or else she will. Ooh. We then cut to this social gathering filled with rich-looking people where Tori meets James's parents for the very first time.
Glad you could join us, Tara.
It's Tori.
Ah yes, the stereotypical rich and smug parents who instantly forget your name on purpose. Their awkward conversation gets cut short when Tori receives a mystery call from someone in her past who calls her Tornado for some reason and makes a thinly veiled threat.
I'm out, and I'm coming for you. All of you.
She gets all worked up by this and decides to hightail out of the party, but not before giving her man something to look forward to.
You can do that?
Willing to try?
Tori goes back to her home in New Jersey when a guy suddenly jumps her from behind, but she uses her judo skills to fend him off quite easily. It's here that we get introduced to the rest of the Bell family. First, we have Papa Bell, who has a very odd way of welcoming his daughter home.
What were you thinking, Dad? That move has never worked on me.
And then we got Mama Bell, who seems to like wearing scantily clad clothes for huge reasons. We also learn more about Tori's past here, as it's revealed that she actually comes from a family of famous bounty hunters who are like these hired mercenaries who track down criminals and bring them to justice. And believe it or not, they actually still exist in this day and age. Tori was also a famous bounty hunter herself, but then she decided that she wanted a career change, don't we all? Which is why she moved to New York. But now her perfect normal life gets threatened when she learns that Manucci, our mystery caller from earlier, wants revenge on the entire Bell family for locking him up all those years ago. So she has to suit up one last time and take care of unfinished business. Kinda like John Wick but way more PG. Anyway, the Bell family decides to do a little recon in the mall in search of Manucci's sister called Big Donna. It's here that we get introduced to the Mrs. character Mike, who is also a bounty hunter and their point man for this mission. And I shit you not, his nickname is actually Mikey Muscles, which sounds like the name of a wrestler with a bad gimmick in the 90s. Turns out Mike, was Tori's former partner slash ex-boyfriend who obviously still has a thing for her. While Tori was busy tailing Big Donna, the rest of the gang take out the bodyguards in various creative ways, which involve chloroforming, throwing somebody off the ledge, and the most effective weapon of them all. What blows me away is how not a single person noticed anything at all in a mall packed with people. As Tori was about to place a tracker in Big Donna's bag, her annoying Jersey friend Liz coincidentally sees her and screams out her name, which breaks her cover. Big Donna tries to make her escape in one of the mildest chase scenes I've ever seen. They caught up to her unsurprisingly, but Donna uses the power of human rights to talk her way out of the situation. No worries though, as Tori was able to slip the big ass tracker to the bag anyway, but it turns out it was a well-planned trap set up by her and Manucci. The gang follows the tracker into this discreet warehouse where our big bad is having a nice, fancy lobster dinner inside of the warehouse. They managed to sneak their way inside where Manucci and his boys were waiting for them. But suddenly, a wild James appears out of nowhere, so Tori rushes to save her clueless boyfriend from getting shot. Remember the tracking app from earlier? Yeah, this dumbass used that to follow his girl right into the warehouse, and he didn't even bother calling her first to ask why the hell was she in a sketchy looking warehouse. Manucci escapes during the gunfight, which is baffling because you'd think that he would have hired more goons to execute this trap.
Dad? James. Dad.
They take him back to the house where Tori panics and asks her family to pretend to act fancy when her rich boyfriend wakes up.
Cracker?
Cheese.
Foot rub?
That was terrible!
I have to admit though, the dad's fake accent really cracked me up.
Libation.
Odd behavior aside, James decides that this would be the perfect time to ask Tori's dad for permission to propose to his daughter instead of, actually proposing to her. No need to do that, I guess, as everyone just assumed that she said yes, and Mama Belle breaks the news to Tori's ex, who was out somewhere while this whole thing was happening. We get a short break from all the bounty hunting stuff as the group decides to celebrate the engagement at Bocino's. At the bar, Tori's loudmouth friend accidentally spills the beans about Tori and Mike's past relationship, to which she shrugs off as just a short fling.
I wouldn't even call it going out.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Tensions continue to build as Tori and Mike discuss their past while in the dance floor where loud music was banging all throughout before James swoops in to have a dance with his fiancée.
He'll get over you if you let him.
We get some more heart-to-heart conversation with the exes after, which ends with Mr. Muscles trying to kiss Tori, but thankfully she gives him the blue balls.
I'm engaged.
The next day, the Bells receive a tip from Mike that Manucci will be at a tree lot that night, to which they decide to go and do some stakeout. James learns about this from Tori's cousin Bones, and he manages to convince him to take him there with some talk no jutsu shit.
Don't you ever wish you can just say, screw the rules and follow your passion?
You have no idea.
The two goofballs show up to surprise them, but since they can't risk blowing their cover, the family whips up some excuse to get James as far out of the area as possible. Things end up going south for Tori as she gets caught at gunpoint by Manucci. A fight then breaks down when suddenly, resident idiot James manages to put himself directly in the middle of the crossfire. Honestly, this guy has the worst situational awareness I've ever seen in a film. He gets taken hostage by Manucci, so Tori and Mike try to give chase, but another car in the traffic causes them to swerve out of the road and lose trail. Back at the Bell family household, the group pull out their thinking caps and manage to deduce that Big Donna's gonna get buried the next day at the warehouse, so that's where they'll be able to bust Manucci once and for all and save James in the process.
It's probably gonna be a big wedding, because Big Donna's big.
We then cut to a scene at the warehouse the next day where the mobsters were all gathered for the said wedding. So who was Big Donna supposed to get married to?
I don't know.
They never even bothered to show or even mention the groom ever. And so that we don't forget that these people are with the mafia, we get a shot where they check their guns into a gun hanger while generic Italian music plays in the background. In fact, this detail was so important that they show literally the same shot again just a few minutes later. Tori uses the tracking app from earlier to find James, which led to this empty room. I mean, come on, that was such an obvious trap. Even the goon said so himself.
You actually thought I'd be dumb enough to let him keep his phone? I'm insulted.
We get another long, overdrawn gunfight while Mama and Papa Bell trap the rest of the mobsters inside the warehouse for their bounty, of course. The fight ends with Tori pressing the switch for a hook that hits Manucci square in the face and he falls several feet down. But when we cut to a shot of him on the ground, he looked unscathed as heck. Seriously, a guy who tripped and fell probably looked way worse than this. But before Tori can arrest Manucci, he pulls one last trick up his sleeve when he brings out James, which forces her to stand down. They bring both of them outside where Mike was somehow waiting on the rooftop to do this not so epic slow motion saving dive. Manucci tries to escape yet again, but Tori takes Big Donna's wedding car and smashes it right through Manucci's car for the big finale. It's also worth pointing out that they just allowed the mobsters to run away. Like, they still got the guns and somehow they just forgot how much bounty those guys were worth.
Bobby weighs $20,000.
Sticks Chris Merrick? 30,000?
Afterwards, Mike and Tori shared another moment and he finally comes to terms with letting her go. She is finally reunited again with her soon-to-be husband and they live happily ever after. Right?
Nope.
Tori does a complete 360 with her character development and realizes that she wanted to be a bounty hunter and stay in Jersey after all. She then runs back to Mikey and makes out with him right in front of her now ex-fiancé.
What?
Honestly, I feel so bad for James. Bro got downgraded from fiancé to friendzone real quick. And she didn't even give the ring back. The film closes with the Bells celebrating Christmas together, and we get that zooming away shot we've seen on every Christmas film before. Oh, and we also get this pointless bit at the end.
That's a wrap for Christmas bounty.
With all the dumb shit I pointed out throughout this film, I gotta say, I actually didn't hate it as much.
Blasphemy!
Except for that ending, that was absolute garbage. What annoyed us the most is that it managed to completely throw away the entire lesson we thought the film was trying to make about accepting your past and learning to move forward. Plus, Tori and Mike had absolutely zero chemistry here, so they weren't even believable as a couple. I was ready to give it an average rating, but that awful ending really soured us on the whole thing. So for that, we're giving this one a 4 out of 10. Our next film is titled Jingle All the Way 2. Released in 2014, starring Larry the Cable Guy, this is the sequel to the 1996 classic, by name only of course, because it has none of the original cast in it and is an entirely separate story from the first film. Our tale begins by introducing us to Larry, who's also using his first name like Mike earlier cause why not, and his 7-year-old daughter Noelle. We get a glimpse at the bond between father and daughter with some lighthearted carpool karaoke on their way to go ice fishing. We also learn through Noelle that Larry and his wife are divorced and that she married a guy named Victor.
Hey, Dad. How come you and Mom didn't stay married?
Boy, that escalated quickly.
They drive inside of this fancy-looking mansion, which we find out is owned by Noelle's stepdad Victor, a very, very wealthy big shot who currently runs his family's box company business. Larry and Victor are clearly not fond of each other, to say the least, and it's made painfully obvious by their awkward conversation.
So, how's the business?
You go first.
Oh, you do it.
How's the trucking business?
We then see him and his ex-wife discussing arrangement for sharing Noelle on Christmas.
Me and Victor getting Christmas Eve this year, and you getting Christmas Day.
Victor vehemently objects and throws a fit upon hearing this, even though he doesn't really have a say in this matter.
Why can't I just do both? Spend half of Christmas with Dad, and then go to Mom and Victor's.
She's brilliant.
Before Larry leaves, Victor shows off his expensive Christmas lights display to impress Noelle, but more so to stick it to Larry. At a diner the next day, we see Larry ranting about Victor to his best friend Claude. He's quite bummed that he can't afford to give Noelle a Christmas lights display as fancy as his rival. But suddenly, a light bulb pops into his head and the two string up some used car parts for the lights show. Yeah, this is definitely an accident waiting to happen. Surprisingly enough, their contraption worked for about a minute. I'm still not sure how he's still alive after that. Back at the house, Noelle convinces his dad to buy a new Christmas tree because, well, the one he has looks quite pathetic, let's be honest. They go to a Christmas lot to buy one, but then he sees Victor buying this ridiculously huge tree.
I'm just trying to buy some goodwill and affection here.
So he's trying to buy Noelle's love.
Wait, how did Larry overhear that? He was like a few feet away, what? We then cut to a scene with Noelle and Victor having a snowball fight. Like Larry, he also feels like he's the inferior dad, making him more of a sympathetic rich a-hole than just a rich a-hole. Larry is back to his schemes again as we see him and Claude shoveling a crap ton of snow on the side of the road so that he can one-up Victor with some real snow. And I'm sure this will turn out better than the last one. Back at the diner, Noelle tells her dad about this special secret wish she wrote in her letter that only Santa can read. Realizing that this gift might finally give him the edge over Victor, he opens the letter anyway at Claude's disappointment.
That's just wrong. Wrong.
But then he sees the letter and it's written like this. Victor somehow finds out about this special secret letter, so he asks one of his henchmen to spy on Larry. Larry visits the local toy shop, whose branding looks awfully like the Toy Story logo, and enlists the help of one of the staff to decipher the letter. He deduces that she must have been referring to Harrison the talking bear, this hot new toy that every kid in town seems to want for Christmas. Seriously, this toy is like the only thing anyone wants in this movie. They didn't have it on stock though, so Larry decided to try his luck on other toy shops the next day. The henchman overhears this and tells Victor, so he devises the pettiest scheme ever. He asks him to buy every single Harrison the talking bear in existence.
It's a bit extreme.
We then get a montage of Larry visiting every toy shop to try and snag one of those bears, not knowing that Victor's henchman is just buying them all up before him. But like, how did he even know where Larry's gonna be first? Oh wait, I know. Down on his luck, Larry sees this ad for a fundraising competition, and wouldn't you know it, the grand prize is a Harrison the Talking Bear. He gets Claude to tag along, and they go to this fundraiser dressed up as Santa Claus, and here we see other dads who were also competing to get the bear.
Better give up now, fellas. My boy wants that bear for Christmas, and I never let my boy down.
It's a reindeer riding competition, and the last Santa standing or riding wins. Claude goes up second, and he lasts for a whopping 1 second. But hey, at least it wasn't the first time that happened.
No offense, King. Oh, what? Good Lord! What's the name? It wasn't right.
Larry wasn't confident that he was gonna last, so he comes up with this clever idea.
Let me tell you something. This glue's gonna give me the edge I need. Oh, yeah.
While he was riding, Victor's henchman suddenly pops out of nowhere and bribes the operator to put the machine at max speed. Larry gets yeeted again, this time off the reindeer. Seriously, this is the third time we've seen this bit? But his plan worked as he ended up lasting for 31 seconds, the best record by far. And his prize for doing all of that is...
A weekend for two in the beautiful, romantic Pocono Mountain!
I'm not really sure what happened, but I'm guessing the henchman also had something to do with the switch up in prizes. We then get a random dream scenario with Larry's greatest fear coming true, his daughter choosing Victor over him.
A Victor bear? Daddy, can I please have it?
Back to reality, Larry's really starting to get desperate, so he dresses up as a poor man's Hagrid so he can maybe try to get the bear from this toy drive event for poor children. But before he can do that, he runs into an ex-girlfriend and they really try to hammer down the fact that he was dressed like a beggar.
I'm sure this is all just a little rough patch, you know, and I just want you to be brave.
By hook or by crook, Larry finally succeeds in his mission, but on his way out, he gets gaslighted by a kid into giving him the bear.
I just hope Santa doesn't forget me on Christmas, like he did last year.
Catch.
Why after everything he did to get it, does he decide to suddenly grow a conscience now is beyond me. But it turned out to be a bad idea anyway, as the kid was actually hired by the henchman. Larry tries to get the bear back, only to get chased by an angry mob because they thought he was harassing a child. Back at the house, Larry receives an anonymous call from someone claiming that he has the bear, only he's selling it for $500. He agrees to it and they meet up at this sketchy junkyard where it's revealed that our mystery caller was actually the guy from the toy store earlier. I sure didn't see that coming. The deal was about to go down when suddenly cops bust into the warehouse and arrest the scalper. And as a collector myself, I say... The next day, Larry was about to admit defeat when suddenly he hears about the bear shortage incident in the news. The two finally put the pieces together that Victor was the one behind it all. So that same night, he goes to the Baxter Box building to tail Victor, and we finally discover where all of the Harrison the Talking Bears are being stored up. They get into a tussle which ends with Larry breaking the door handle, so now both of them are trapped inside. Meanwhile, at the town lighting ceremony that Victor was supposed to host, his henchman, whose name is Nate Welling by the way, not that it matters, was confronted by the reporter about the bear shortage, to which he denies any involvement. But the crowd was having none of that shit, and they force him to tell the truth.
It was Victor Baxter.
Looks like someone's getting fired after this. Learning about the truth, the crowd revolts and a mild riot breaks down. Back at the Baxter building, Larry and Victor finally come to terms with their insecurities after a lame-ass looking fight.
Pathetic.
They worked together to get out of the warehouse and then figured out a way to quell the wrath of an angry mob.
I have free Harrison bears for everybody who wants one.
Well, that was easy. We fast forward to Christmas Day and the two dads agree to spend Christmas together. They even shared the gift too. It's at this point that we finally get the big plot twist reveal.
I get it.
Me too. Together as one.
I guess it worked out in the end, and all it took was a badly written letter. The end. This movie is a perfect example of a paper thin plot. The whole crux of it revolves around Larry's wild goose chase hunt for this toy because of a misunderstood letter. It really would have been a way shorter film had it not been for the twist at the end that anyone with some common sense would have predicted a mile away. But since I chose to suspend my disbelief for the entirety of it, I actually found this one pretty decent. Not decent enough that I'd watch it again, but it's worth watching for the first time. And because of that, we're giving this one a 6 out of 10. Next up, The Miz takes the lead role this time around in 2015's Santa's Little Helper. The opening credits are yet again in red and green text because we really need to get reminded that we're watching a Christmas film. We get introduced to our main guy, Dax the Axe Ardwick, which sounds better than Mikey Muscles, but that's not saying too much. Dax is this smug and arrogant businessman who cares about nothing but himself. So it's basically The Miz if he became a corporate slave. He pays a visit to the local youth center to let them know that the place is getting demolished because of their overdue lease payments. Get it? Cause his nickname is the Axe and is giving them the axe.
You suck.
Life's full of disappointments, kid. Get used to it.
Damn, that's cold.
Wait, is that what I think it is? At the corporate office, we get to see more of Dax just being a complete dick to everybody. But I guess karma really does hit hard and fast.
2-week severance. You're fired.
Enjoy the ride down.
The bad luck doesn't end there as his girlfriend leaves him and his car gets repossessed. Oh, and since he can't pay for the house anymore, that's also gonna get foreclosed. Feeling defeated, Dax goes back to the youth center from earlier and we got a shot of the phallic looking symbol again. It looks like he has some sort of grudge with the place, which we'll find out why later. But for now, a mysterious man who claims to be Santa Claus appears out of nowhere and gives Dax some words of wisdom.
It's never too late to be the person you should be.
Well, wouldn't you know it, the guy's actually the real deal, and we get to see Santa's workshop in the North Pole. It's here that we're introduced to his personal trainer elf Billy, who apparently has a genetic birth defect which caused her ears to be round instead of pointy. You know, like a normal human being. Santa tells Billy that the current ho-ho-ho is resigning from his position after 200 years, and gives her the important task of testing a potential candidate to be the replacement. So what is a ho-ho-ho, you might ask? Well, it stands for Head Office Herald of Holiday Operations. And I know it's corny as heck, but
I'll allow it.
before Billy could set off on her mission, Paige, aka Eleanor, who is the daughter of the current ho-ho-ho, confronts and just outright bullies her for no apparent reason.
What are you, a trainer and a dateless wonder?
She wants to know where Billy is going, so she tries to extort the information from Fitz the operator. I should point out that these are the fakest
Wait a minute, what the hell?
I've ever seen. Billy shows up at Dax's house because it turns out he's the candidate Santa was alluding to earlier. The normie, as they like to call us humans.
He's a normie. Normie.
Pretty sure that's not how you use that word. But anyway, she introduces herself to Dax, who can't seem to hide her thirst for her.
Billy is fine.
Billy is fine.
Did you just...
I did not.
And tells him about the job opportunity. And by tell, I mean she completely avoids giving any information about what or who he'll be working for. Sounds awfully like one of those job hiring scams you see online. Not that I would know. But in order to get considered for the position, he must complete a set of tests first. And Dax, being a desperate, soon-to-be homeless man, agrees to do it. The first test is about solving conflicts peacefully, and for that, she takes him to a biker's bar. Dax has to tell one of these fine-looking gentlemen that he dinged one of their bikes. Oh, and while also wearing this silly hat for the lols. To nobody's surprise, this ended up going poorly. But thankfully, the bikers have shitty reflexes, so they just end up taking each other out. It's here where we also get the best scene of the entire film.
Just so you know, my husband is average balls.
Dax was about to get killed when Billy steps in and uses the magic necklace Santa gave her earlier to stop time and bail his ass out. Back at the house, Billy notices that he doesn't have any Christmas decorations, and Dax reveals that he actually doesn't like Christmas at all.
Christmas isn't exactly my favorite time of year.
After he takes off to get a shower, Billy tries to summon Santa, but then Fitz comes out instead wearing Santa's clothes.
Am I in trouble?
Your secret is safe with me.
Turns out Santa was behind the chair listening the whole time, and for some reason they didn't notice him. She questions why he chose Dax in the first place, to which he responds with another nugget of wisdom.
Sometimes making the choice that makes the least sense makes the most sense.
What?
For the next test, they go to this restaurant where a children's birthday party is happening.
Cooking?
Well, that was rude. The test is about humility, and for this, Billy makes him put on a monkey costume. It wasn't really explained what he's supposed to be doing here, but I'd put my money on getting humiliated by kids. And that is exactly what happened.
1, 2, 3.
For some reason, he's supposed to be the entertainment and also the only waiter for the party. After surviving what literally can be described as hell on earth, Dax has finally had enough of the birthday boy being a little bitch and does this. He manages to turn the situation into a positive by calling for a food fight. Not exactly the outcome Billy wanted, but hey, it worked. Dax runs across Eleanor in the kitchen and they completely misunderstood what each other is talking about.
I will fight to the death to become the new monkey.
Seriously, Paige's character must have had a crappy childhood because she's just flat out mean the entire film.
You really think that poor excuse for a human can compete with the likes of me? Because when I become the new ho-ho-ho, I'm gonna make your life a living hell.
Back at the house, the two have a moment where it looked like they were about to kiss when Billy pulls out at the last second, giving Dax the blue balls. Now, where have I seen this before?
I'm engaged. It's just unfair.
After some awkward tension the next day, Billy reveals the third test and it's about leadership. This time, the goal is to inspire the old people in a retirement house to get up their butts and exercise. But horny grandma had some other ideas.
Take your shirt off. I say, take your shirt off and I'll think about it.
He succeeds in getting the old people to move, well, most of them anyway, and we get this cringe-worthy scene. After fixing a flat tire, Billy decides to stop over for a hot dog break. Meanwhile, Dax encounters a man who appears to have been mugged by the same teenagers he just came across with. He tells a sob story about the importance of the ring that was stolen from him, and after a bit of hesitation, Dax decides to help the man recover the ring back. In doing so, he unknowingly passes his final test, which is about showing kindness to those in need.
Does that mean I got the job?
It means you qualify for the job. The final decision is up to the boss himself.
They celebrate at the house, where Billy finally reveals the name of her employer.
Just tell me.
It's Santa.
You've been bamboozled!
Dax was in complete disbelief after hearing this, and he just loses it entirely. Billy uses the bell again to shut him up, and Santa arrives at his doorstep just in time to explain everything. Santa takes him back to a flashback where we learn more about his past at the youth center. Turns out, when he was a teenager, Dax was framed by the director for stealing all the money for the play. He was kicked out of the youth center because of it, and that was the moment that changed him forever as he became this self-centered man that he is now. Santa also showed what his life would have been had he not followed the dark path.
Or walking around the block. I always start my day with Dax flags.
Oh, so that's what the symbol meant from earlier, a spaceship.
This one is on me. Gentlemen, my bad.
You would have used the science of zero gravity and discovered a cure for the common cold.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So you're telling me that he would have had more jobs than this guy? Later that night, Santa finally offers Dax the position and gives him time to make a decision. Given that he doesn't really have any other offers, he happily accepts and gives up his house to move to the North Pole. He then gets a warm welcoming from everyone except for our local Grinch. Before the swearing ceremony could take place, Eleanor interrupts, in a grand fashion I might add, and uses some old North Pole rule to challenge Dax for the ho-ho-ho position.
A race at the SBC.
Apparently, it's a brutal obstacle course that's meant to prepare all elves for the challenges that will come their way. Because even elves need those American Ninja Warrior level skills in order to do this. At the obstacle course, everyone was passionately, and I mean passionately, cheering for Dax to win. But Eleanor manages to blatantly cheat her way to victory. After the competition, Dax and Eleanor show each other some good sportsmanship. Or at least that's what he hoped would happen.
How pathetic. Face it, Normie. You don't belong here.
He and Billy then had some parting words before Dax suddenly turns heel and steals the magic bell. I mean, you can't blame him though, she literally left it on the table for the taking. He gives himself a nice suit and a nice car before rushing his way to the youth center. Turns out, this devious act was for a good cause as he planned to stop the building from being taken down. So why couldn't he have just teleported himself to the youth center in the first place then? Dax uses the bell to summon the scummy director from earlier in the flashback and incriminates him for stealing money from the center. Police officers then arrest him without any warrant or evidence to support the claims.
With the law, bitch.
He was about to use the bell again to produce the money that was due when Santa stops and leaves him to his own devices to avert the crisis. And he manages to do so by giving a hero speech and convince everyone to stand in arms to stop the demolition. And so, Dax saves the day in a heroic act and his redemption arc is now complete. Eleanor suddenly comes out again to ruin the moment, but Santa shuts her up and disqualifies her for lack of good sportsmanship. And he didn't bother to bring this up earlier, why? So now, it only makes sense that Dax gets his rightful claim as the ho-ho-ho, right?
Nah. I'm doing this because I mean you.
Me? Huh?
Tell me he didn't just say that.
So now Dax is broke, homeless, and still has no job. But hey, at least he got this.
The best version of yourself.
You serious?
Dax and Billy share a kiss, and that's the end of it. Honestly, this film started off decent enough, but then it just completely lost me once Miss passes the test and goes to the North Pole. What's even more baffling is why Dax isn't frustrated at all by how things turned out.
Oh, don't you get it? My life is over! So everything worked out for the best.
I mean, he literally wasted his time doing all those trials, and for what? So he can be the best version of himself? Well, good luck finding food and a place to eat with that. So for wasting me, my girlfriend, and everyone else's time with that cop-out of an ending, I'm giving this one a 3 out of 10. The next one we're gonna talk about is a little bit different. It's called Barricade, and this was actually the first quote-unquote Christmas-themed film released by WWE Studios back in 2012. It's also the only one to not feature any WWE superstar at the time. My girlfriend decided to sit this one out because she doesn't watch horror flicks, and boy did she get lucky. The movie opens by taking us to a regular day at the Shade household. A woman named Leah is looking at an old picture of a cabin she used to go to as a kid, and brings up the idea of taking their kids there for Christmas to her husband Terrence, who's played by the wonderful Eric McCormack. Terrence laments having to skip work for the trip and that he's more of the provider while she's better at taking care of their kids. Fast forward to a year later and we see this long-ass driving montage, which, if not for the context of it being in the movie, would have passed as a car commercial ad.
The boldly stylish and comfortable Honda Elevate. You're the chase.
It's here where we meet the children, Cynthia and Jake Shade, who look pretty exhausted from the road trip. It took them until nighttime, but they finally arrived at this old gas station along the road. Terrence was looking for someone through the door when suddenly, an old man appears out of nowhere and scares the shit out of him. Turns out it was the guy he was looking for, Sheriff House, who apparently knew his wife Leah when she was younger. And if you're wondering why she isn't with them, turns out she's dead. Yes, after that first scene where she looked very much alive, they decided to just bring out this important plot point in this conversation.
So sorry to hear about your loss.
But how did she die is the question. Well, we're gonna have to wait for that answer way later in the film. Anyway, they go inside and the sheriff gives Terrence the keys to a cabin and some free candy for the kids, before going off their merry way into another driving montage. Terrence goes outside to look and sees a trail of blood in the snow. Following the tracks, he discovers an injured wolf snarling aggressively at him. He decides to leave the wolf out to die and goes back to the car.
That couldn't have been a squirrel, Dad. No shit.
Watch your mouth, Jake.
But you say it all the time.
Jake, let it go.
Shut up, Meg.
They finally arrive at this cabin in the woods that his dead wife mentioned earlier. I guess he actually followed through with the trip in her memory. Still don't know how she died though. They tour the inside of the cabin and it turns out to be pretty quaint. It's got a Christmas tree, a freezer with ton of food, and most importantly of all, a working TV. Everything seems to be perfect except for that door moving by itself and sounds coming from inside the walls. But hey, it's probably just the wind. The kids fall asleep while watching TV. Meanwhile, Terrence reminisces the good old days when they were still a complete family. He goes out to look for the creepy woman when suddenly, the door behind him closes shut and he wakes up thinking it was all a dream. Or is it? It's now daytime and Terrence suggests that they all suit up and go outside to play in the snow.
It's just the door to the attic, sweetheart.
I think there's something out there.
There's something out there.
It's starting to look more and more like they're not the only ones in the house. They go outside and have a snowball fight, but Jake suddenly goes off somewhere and they find him locked inside of a tool shed. The kids started coughing really bad, so Dad decides that they pay Mr. House a visit and ask for a doctor. Back at the house, Terrence gets hit with another flashback, this time with him and his wife doing the nasty. Look, I know it's been a while and all, but this is probably not the best time to get all horny and shit. Terrence snaps out of it and he goes outside again to start the car, only to find out that it's now been buried deep in snow. But wait, wasn't the car just like this before they went outside? How long has this guy been daydreaming? He tries to clear the snow with a shovel, but it's no use and now they're stuck in the house. So he goes to plan B instead.
What do you say? Go back inside, make a nice fire, some soup, all the good stuff Mom used to do.
Jake's cough seems to be worsening, but since they can't go anywhere, they just check the house again to make sure it's safe.
I think it's time for a watch What do you say? I'm hungry. How about you guys?
It's nighttime, Daddy. What's wrong with you?
It's clear that Terrence is starting to freak out with all the weird stuff happening, but he manages to keep his cool for now. While eating soup in the bedroom, they reminisce about the mom again, but Jake says something that makes him completely flip out.
Is it coming for us?
Why did you say that?
I don't know.
Why are you so afraid?
Why are you acting so weird, Dad?
She's got a point.
He decides to check it out and grabs a flimsy-looking lampstand for protection. They both breathe a sigh of relief, but suddenly, Sheriff House gets comically yeeted out by an unknown force outside and he disappears. Shit is really starting to hit the fan as the lights go out, so Terrence has to go down the basement to fix the electrical panel. Wait, how the heck is that cool? We get some more loud banging, so in order to protect themselves, Terrence has to barricade the house. Get it? Cause that's the name of the film.
I have to make this house safe for us. And to do that, there's things I need from the tool shed.
Well, then we have to come with you.
God, look at the size of these things. They're humongous. Nothing's getting past that.
That's what she said.
Before they could get back to the house though, the ominous presence threatens them with an earthquake. They manage to escape and go back inside the house, but then their dad starts to hallucinate again. The kids pull him back to reality and we get a montage of Terrence barricading the house.
Now. Oh. Dad, no way we're going back in the basement.
No, I know.
Refusing to go back to the basement, they grab some candles and we get some peace and calm again before things get really bad. After some time, the kids try to sleep while their dad keeps watch, but then he begins to daze off and we get some more flashbacks. When he wakes up, the children are now gone, so he rushes off to find them. He sees Cynthia in the kitchen floor very oddly eating some mac and cheese.
Why won't you look at me? Why won't you look at me?
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Cynthia turns around to reveal that she's become one of those monsters. That or she just got a bad facelift. He then finds Jake being dragged by something into the attic. Terrence tries to give chase, but the floors beneath him suddenly collapse. He looks out the window and sees that Jake is now outside with the ominous figures. Digging for his kids, he discovers nothing but Cynthia's doll there. Not really sure how it got there, but he completely loses it and he runs off to the house and finds them upstairs in the bedroom, still alive but not so well. Terrence suddenly finds Sheriff House car keys inside his pocket, which, 1. How the heck did it get there? And 2. Why did he only notice that now? They then use the pickup truck to escape, but the road is so hard to navigate that they end up crashing into the snow. Terrence somehow manages to carry them both back to the house where we get another flashback scene. This time, it's finally revealed how Leah actually died.
No! God, no! Leah! Oh, God damn it! No!
Well, took you long enough.
Back to reality now and the kids have disappeared again for like the 1000th time. So he runs off to find them and sees Jake in the bathroom going to an ice bath and disappears, say it with me, again.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Oh my god, what is this? You know, I'm not even gonna say anything. Terrence goes back up the attic and hey, Sheriff House is still alive somehow, but someone duct taped him there for some reason. He tells Terrence that the storm has actually been gone for days now, and being absolutely dumbfounded by this revelation, he rushes to check up on the kids again while leaving the old man still tied up. He finds them looking as dead as my interest for this movie, and it's here that we get that big plot twist to tie everything up. Kinda. When Sheriff House visited them that one time, Terrence realizes that it was him who inadvertently caused the kids to get sick when he touched them back at the gas station. And out of anger, he beats the crap out of the old man and traps him in the attic. Meanwhile, the strange stuff we saw for the majority of the film was just him imagining stuff due to overdosing from the medication he took earlier. So, in the end, it was just a virus that killed the children. Or so he thought. The kids suddenly wake up as if nothing happened to them.
What?
Cops then show up to the house where they find House locked up in the attic. Well, good luck explaining that.
We'll get you home. Lock his ass up.
He'll get what's coming to him.
Nope.
The family finally leaves the cabin for good, and we get one last shot of the entire cabin when someone appears to be watching as the ambulance drives off. The end? But wait, if I could just be positive here for a second before I rip it into shreds, the idea for the film is actually not that bad. An estranged father slowly losing his sanity while trapped inside a house which may or may not be haunted makes for an interesting premise for a movie. Problem is, the execution itself is just horrible. It tries to be clever by doing a fake out at the end and that he was imagining most of the things we saw in the film. But because of that jumbled mess they call a story, it just didn't work. The mother, who's supposed to be the main reason why they went to the cabin in the first place, gets killed off through conversation and we only find out how she died towards the end, which at that point, who cares? Look, I'm no director or scriptwriter, but wouldn't it have been better to just show it in the first scene so that we get to feel the weight of her loss lingering throughout the film? And then you have the atrocious lighting. Seriously, I get that it was mostly set at night, but there really should have been a better way of shooting it. I mean, look at this. What am I even looking at? This might be worse than that one episode in the Game of Thrones. Barricade is by far the worst of the 4 movies. At least the other 3 were not really trying to take themselves too seriously and they had their moments.
Peanuts? Why'd you do that? I was hoping you had a peanut allergy.
But here, we get none of that. For all those reasons and being a complete waste of time, I'm giving this one a 1 out of 10. So, that is the end of it. I hope you enjoyed the TED Talk rant, and if you stuck around till the end, please consider liking and subscribing. It will be the best Christmas gift I could ask for this year. Till the next video, happy holidays!